involved in the session by asking questions when we have a break for questions. Also putting in your questions in the chat, comments in the chat is really going to help us as we go along. So we're looking at, in the third theme, winning at the business of work. So in the first theme, we looked at discovering the hero within, and we also looked at understanding what work means, understanding what is my purpose, what is it that I want to achieve in my career as we go along, right? And so what we're doing as well is building that foundation to understand that. In the second module, we were looking a lot at how do we prepare ourselves to be seen in the world of work? How do we get our LinkedIn profiles done? So we do have recordings of those sessions. And I just want you to make sure that if you've missed those sessions in previous ones, that you can just go through and make sure that you kind of catch up on that. Is there a question? Is everyone good? Can you see me? Can you see the slides? Let me just make sure. Okay, you guys can see the slides, right? Okay, perfect. I just want to make sure that you guys can see my spotlight. Okay. Gonna move that there. So I want to know how is everyone feeling, because it is now August. We are heading into the final stretch of the year. And so this stuff is really getting more and more relevant. Someone's asking where they can get the recordings. Young, you can just maybe let us know. I think in the group, and if they scroll up, they'll be able to get the links, Youngie, but you can maybe respond on that one. So how are you feeling about getting a job? Are you able to already know what you're going to be doing next year, or are you still kind of figuring out what you want to do? So let me know in the chats, where are you at right now? Say, I have a job, still looking for a job, not really sure what I'm going to do. This is why I'm in the session. So let me know where you are right now. So for those of you who are new today, welcome. I'm going to introduce myself to you. Someone said still figuring it out. Well, that's great, because you are going to have a lot of information today. Not really sure what I'm going to do. Michaela, I'm here for you. We're going to figure it out together, okay? And so for those of you who are meeting me for the first time, I am a former Stellenbosch University employee, but I started working at the ripe young age of 17. And so in today's session, I'm actually going to show you how I got my different jobs. I've had 16 job titles. That's a lot. Don't try and figure out my age. Eventually, you'll figure out exactly how old I am. Still figuring out, trying to start the degree first, and then hoping the job market isn't too saturated. That's a very good comment, because I think we are all worried about that. Excited to get back into the world of work after the 3-year break. Thank you so much, guys. Keep those comments coming so we understand who's on the call and how we can share from each other's learning and experience. So some of the feedback we've been getting from the previous sessions, and this is what we've been looking at in terms of understanding how the world of work has really changed. So what I keep telling everybody is that what our parents understood about work was, their narrative was, work hard, get a degree, get a job, and then life is fine. And that's just part of the story. It's not the whole story, okay? So we're understanding that as we are discovering our interests, our passions, what are we wanting to do, and how that value can be translated in the world of work. It's a very complex thing, but also a very exciting thing. Some of the questions that I've been asking in this session is really to think about, what value can I add to the working world? As much as we want to look at what can I get, I want the job, I want the money, I want the position, we have to think long term, because no job is going to give you that fulfillment that you have to give yourself. So we have to ask ourselves the question, who can I become? What problems am I wanting to solve that I'm good at solving? And how can I keep getting better at solving that problem so that I am more marketable, essentially? So some of the feedback that came back, and thank you so much for the feedback for those who've sent it. Cheryl's questions made me deep dive into understand who I really am and what I really value. So again, if you've missed some of those previous exercises in terms of identifying what are your core values, looking at what your CV template looks like, how to get your LinkedIn profile done, please revert back to that. And if you're missing them, please let us know so we can make sure that you have that, because that's a very important thing to build on as we go. These sessions makes you look in the mirror and think about the plans for the year ahead. And I just want to say, I've worked at 4 different universities, and I know that the university space feels safe because as much as it's challenging, it's kind of like, well, I know what to expect here. The world of work is a bit scary. So maybe, this is why I want to stay here as long as possible. But eventually, yes, you do have to step out. So this is why we're doing this for those of us who are joining us on the call today, to help you face the realities of the world of work. And as someone who has had 25 years of working experience, I can tell you that even my understanding of work and how work changes as you go through different stages of life is a very interesting philosophy to keep building on. We want to give you the tools to help you to sell yourself and to help you to become a worker for the new world. Just a reminder, guys, to please mute if you are not asking a question. We will have time for questions later on. So where we are right now is looking at the business of work. We've covered discover the hero within and then navigating the new pathways of work. That's really where I covered how the world of work has shifted. And so today we're going to cover a lot about, I'll show you exactly what we're going to go into. So in this module, we're going to cover how do we find that first job or the second job for those of you who already have had that. Yongi, do you maybe have a link to the previous session slides? If you don't, we'll give that to you afterwards, definitely. We're going to be looking at how to interview, whether it's online, in person. What do you look for in interview? How do you overcome those nerves when you're being interviewed? And then once you get a job offer, to assess that in terms of, and it sounds funny, but if you are living in the Western Cape, maybe with your parents, and then you have to consider taking a job offer in Gauteng, which is probably a good idea because there is more job opportunities available here. You're going to have to look at the cost. Can I afford to take this job if I still have to get my own place, accommodation, car, all those things? So those very practical things. So let's just say, okay, you get a job in the next 2 to 3 months, and now you get to start your new job. So what will that mean, right? And then how to deal with the honeymoon being over, because there's a process of thinking about, okay, when I finally get this job, all the things that I've been waiting for will now come along, right? And how do we start to become valuable in the marketplace? That's what we want to look at in the session. So if you have any other questions or kind of requirements, Yonki, can you just help me to mute the people in the meeting that are unmuted there, please? I think someone is, there we go. Okay, I got that. So if you have any other questions, any other expectations, please pop that into the chat. We'll definitely cover that as we go along. And then for those joining us for the first time, again, this is a safe space. So although we are recording these sessions, it's more for those who are unable to make all the sessions so that they don't miss any of the communication. But please put in your comments and share your own experiences. We're here to help each other grow. I know some things, I don't know everything. So we're going to learn about that as we go. So if you have any other expectations for this module as well as for this session, please put that into the chat and I can see it on my right-hand side. That's why I'm looking on this side. If you can just put it into the chat to say if there's anything else you want me to cover as we go along. Okay, so there's nothing else for right now. If you want to maybe ask a question here, you can, or your expectations for the session. Maybe even talk about some of the fears you're having about, am I going to be able to get a job, Cheryl, in this environment? So yeah. Would anyone like to ask a question or put it into the chat? I'll give you a minute or two to maybe think about it. And also, if you are feeling it, most likely somebody else is also feeling it. So don't feel like there's a stupid question or like a question that doesn't make sense because maybe somebody else also has the same question. Let me know if you want to maybe unmute and say hello and tell me expectations or have questions to add.
Hi, Sharon.
Hi, who's speaking?
It's Rachel here.
Hi, Rachel. Hi.
Okay. Hi. So, okay, I'm a PhD student. I'm busy with through my examination process. I've submitted my thesis. I'm actually waiting to defend.
Congratulations.
So, thank you. So, I actually, yes, I'm very nervous at the moment.
I can hear
I have
that.
lots of things. I can't even sleep. I've got my
Oh,
defense coming, and
yeah.
what's coming. Also, I'm thinking my future, and I've got kids.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a lot of things on my
Yeah.
plate.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but I just want you to talk about the postdoctoral journey. So,
Okay.
because I'm kind of like trying to weigh options. Do I go into the industry? Do I get a job? But it's also, I also want to be realistic. Are there even jobs out there? Will I even get something out? And then,
Yeah.
okay, do I go into postdoc? I like what I'm doing. Or am I gonna go into the postdoc because I must put food on the table? I'm kind of like confused, maybe.
Yeah.
And a lot of things going through my mind. And then, but then I feel like if I go through postdoc, then am I gonna be stuck there, or am I going to get more experience, learn new things that will help me in the industry? I don't know. So maybe you can help me. I'm just trying to weigh my options. Which way do you go? Do you go into the industry? Do you go into the postdoc? Are you gonna be stuck? Is it kind of like it's a way of, because I don't know. Please help.
Rachel, thank you so much for your honesty and your openness. So I just want to say that I've been working with the postdocs as well at Stellenbosch University, and I totally understand your dilemma because number one, you have kids. And so the financial element is going to be your primary deciding factor of what do I do? Because you need to make sure that you and your kids are taken care of. So a lot of stress happening. You have to defend that's coming the defense for your doctor that's coming up. This is something that I've noticed a lot, and especially because you are researchers, you love the research, you love the work, okay? And so you feel like there's no other place where I can do this kind of work and do this kind of research. So I'm going to give you an example of a postdoc called Pascal. We were working together about 2 years ago, and then again, this year again, when I did the second session with the postdocs, we also engaged. So he had the same thing. He had a wife, he had kids, and as we were going through this, we were wondering, does he stay in, on this track? He was a postdoc at the time. The thing with postdocs is that there's a cap on the income. Okay, so often we think that if we are in this academic track, then there's no space for us in industry. And that is not necessarily true. So I don't know what you've studied. We can maybe have an offline conversation around what is your actual kind of focus area, and then we can look at the industry and see, are there kind of research positions or even in the NGO space that are looking for people like you? The biggest mistake I would say to make is to think that I have to get more knowledge in order for me to go into the industry, because the academia values knowledge and the industry values skills. So if I were you, Rachel, I would not delay getting into industry, because you can always come back and do research. Pascal, he looked at his finances and realized, okay, I need to do something. So he actually negotiated that he could still do his research, but he went and got a job in the industry that was aligned to his research. So he's able to take care of his family and still do his research. So that is one option, So you have to take it on a case by case scenario. And I know you sound very nervous and anxious, but you have to think long term of what's going to be most important for myself and my family to make sure that we are financially stable. Okay. Hope that answers your question. And then we can kind of address it again maybe at the end of the session. There's a question here from Sibi saying, the question I have is that I have fear that I will not get a job because I took too long to finish my 4-year degree. My question is, how do I push myself into believing that the results do not reflect the type of employee I can be in the work industry, and believe that I will get a job even though I took long to finish my degree? I can't see a full name here. Sabisi, sorry. The answer is, I'm going to be very honest, they don't care. They don't care how long it took to finish your degree. You have a degree, right? Unless it's law, and sometimes they do kind of frown upon a degree that's taken longer than it should. So that is one thing I am aware of. But generally, whether you got a B or an A or a C does not matter. They really don't care. Again, I'm going to say this to you because I know you've been in academia for so long. It's hard to see the other side, right? So I think the value I bring to the space is that I straddle both sides. I work with companies who get graduates into their spaces, and they are requiring skills. So the knowledge is needed. I'm not saying it's not needed, it's needed and necessary. But what's going to be important is how you build that bridge to applying your knowledge in a real world environment. So whether you got to, took 4 years to complete the degree, or whether you took whether you got all B's or all D's, that you passed, right? They want to know, is this person a good fit in my organization? Can they work well in the team? Can they bring their insights and knowledge? How is their work ethic? Are they punctual? Are they able to deliver on the outcomes? That's what companies are looking for, is skills. So I'm so glad we're talking about this now, because actually this is something to address. I think there's a fear around, do companies really, how will I translate my value, I think. I see a hand raised there. Who is, yes, you can go ahead. Is it uh N Brian? Go for it. You wanted to say something?
Hi.
Hi,
Um, it's it's Miss Byrne, but you can
Miss
just call
Byrne.
me Nikki. Yes,
Sorry,
Nikki for short.
sorry.
No, that's fine. So,
Good.
I'm very much the same as I think our first initial speaker. So, like, I'm currently doing my MSc.
Mm-hmm,
I'm struggling with the concept of do I do my PhD after my MSc? Do I first get some work experience?
mm-hmm,
Um, do I do the internship to kind of like get the HP? I think it's the
mm-hmm.
CSA registration.
Yeah.
Um, I'm not sure way to go because I can see myself doing both, following both
Mm,
an academia route and an industry route because I quite
mm,
enjoy what I do a lot. So
yeah.
for me, I don't know. I just don't know what would fit me best or what to do and where to
Mm,
even start looking. And because it's similar to what you've mentioned, like we've been in academia so long, we don't really know
mhm.
what's
Yeah, what's
after
out
that.
there? Yeah,
Yes,
yeah. You're
yes.
kind of stuck in this special world, right? And so you almost, it's like Alice in Wonderland in a way. So I want to ask you, sorry, you said your first name is Nikki, right?
Yes.
Nikki. So Nikki, which one are you leaning more towards? Okay, let's just ask you this way. If I was to give you 50 million rand that you could invest and never have to worry about money, which path would you want to follow?
Oh, that's so difficult. Um,
You want to
I
solve it both.
I think like for me, um, I feel that like if you stay in academia, will you have enough finances to support a family? Like if you're into
Mm,
like wanting a family one day,
mhm,
um,
mhm,
do like if you give me the money, sure, I think I'd probably stay in academia.
mm, yeah.
Um, just because I like it so much and I like learning new things so much. But I
Mm,
also know that I'm pretty sure that is something that you can do when you work. Like I think if you have a work
yes.
that gives you enough exposure, it's just
Mhm,
it's hard because I think the picture that I set out for myself one day isn't
mm.
something that's feasible maybe or not even feasible. I don't think it's realistic. So
What
because
is
you
that
look
picture, Nikki?
at
If you don't mind sharing with the group, you don't have to, but
No, I don't mind. So, I'm currently doing my MSc in medical virology.
mhm,
So infectious diseases all the way. Um, and I think something that, so for me, when we had the pandemic and when there was the Ebola pandemic, like a couple of
mhm,
years ago, I
mm,
saw how much, a sacrifice and time and effort like yes, healthcare workers because they're like the first line, but then scientists behind the screen to be able
mm,
to get vaccines and to be able to
yeah.
test and see new variants. So for me, I wanted to eventually end up working in a hospital and kind of like the infectious diseases unit.
Mm.
Um, but I also don't want to be that person that does the same thing every day. So
Mm.
in academia, because you kind of have the freedom to investigate new things and try new things, obviously
Yeah.
budget dependent, I feel like
Mm.
there won't be that stagnancy of the same thing every day. And
Mm.
my main thing whenever I thought of moving into industry is that every day will be the same. I'll go in, I'll do the same things, and I feel
Why do
like
you
that would.
think that? Why do you think that?
Oh, I guess probably because um that's what I've seen. So I'm the only scientist in
Mm.
my family.
Mm.
So
Mm. Mm.
I have nothing to compare it to. I
Yes.
can compare it to an accountant that does the same thing every day or somebody that sits in the office. But for me, because this is a journey that I chose for myself, um, entirely, there's been kind of no support on where
Mm.
do I go, where do I get the resources to know where to go, or what exposure to industry is there for
Yeah.
kind of like people like us.
People like us. Yes. I love that, Nikki. Thank you so much for sharing it. You said some key things there, and I'm glad that we're talking about this before we dive into how do I get a job, because I think it's good to put into context what kind of jobs are we looking for as a group. So if you can, guys, in the chat, tell me about the companies that you were thinking about working for or the type of roles that you've been thinking about already. And maybe you haven't thought about that because, like Nikki shared, and thank you so much for sharing that, you're just not sure because it feels like a disconnect, right? From the work that you're doing now that you're so much loving. And so it almost feels like you're selling out. And unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, it's just one of those things in academia where it's part of the culture, part of the story that we are doing special work here, right? So intellectual work, which is a good thing. And then if we go into industry, we won't be able to do that work. So I'm going to bring back a very real Stellenbosch University example of someone who went into industry and could still do his research, still hold on to that. So I want you to open up your mind to possibilities that it does not have to be a selling out process. You don't have to sell out. What you can do is sell your skill sets by identifying what you have as valuable that the industry needs. Because the industry is going to be where you will be able to get more financial stability. In academia, there's a cap on that income. It's not like in industry where it's a meritocracy. So if you are able to meet your targets or there's promotions and things like that, there's upward growth. And also it's not just industry or academia. You could also go into entrepreneurship. You could start up your own something and be able to apply your work in that space. Maybe not on your own, maybe with a group of people. So there's different avenues. So I would definitely encourage you guys to go and look into the previous session around navigating the pathways of work, because I cover that a lot in terms of if you want to stay in academia, what are your options? If you want to go into industry, what are your options? And then if you want to maybe do entrepreneurship as well, what are your options there? And remember, it's not linear. The stuff is messy, so we don't actually know with absolute certainty what's going to happen, but we can have clarity. So what do I mean by that? When there's uncertainty, like Rachel was saying, everything is crazy right now. I'm not sure where to go. Where am I gonna do? What's the next thing I should be doing? We have to kind of take a moment and go back to, and if you go back into the previous sessions as well, around what do I want for my life? And Nikki, you were saying, this is a journey I created for myself. And I think it is that thing to understand that perhaps you are the pioneer and perhaps people don't understand why you're so crazy about the research. Why are you still studying? Why aren't you working? I'm sure you've heard that a lot, right? And so it doesn't mean that you need to explain yourself to everybody, but you do need to understand yourself enough to know what is it that I want. And to know what you want, that's the clarity. So your dream, Nikki, of working in the hospital, um, I can't remember what specific department you meant there, but to work with those infectious diseases, that might take 10 to 15 years to materialize. Not to say that will never happen. So this is also the pressure that you are feeling right now is you're comparing yourself to other people who are there already, and our journeys are not all the same, right? So I think also in this space where we are right now, your generation is feeling the pressure to have, what would take a lifetime to achieve in your 20s. And that's not realistic. So firstly, I want you to take a deep breath and just figure out it's all going to be okay. It's going to be okay. It's going to work out. I'll show you from my own example about how I got my different jobs and how when you are at this point of crossroads, it feels like if I go this way and I don't go the other way, I'm going to totally ruin my life completely. And I can just say that whatever you decide, it's all going to work out. And how can I say that? To this day. So it makes more sense in hindsight. Okay, so if I could give you anything today for this group, is to say, just take a deep breath. It's going to work out. Okay, you already are at this point because you've made certain choices. You followed your heart, you followed your passion. Okay, so we're going to figure out, okay, now how do I take this passion to my next step? Someone else is asking here, what strategies can international students use to build a professional network? Okay, we'll come to that one. We have to look for work with a BA degree, as there's no specific job per se. Okay, well, I'll answer your question as we come to that section today. And then someone else is saying, I'm super ready to move on from research into industry, finish my PhD. Well done on that. Struggling how to highlight my transferable skills and sell myself to employers. Okay, perfect. Great. Now we can get digging into the session. Okay, so we'll be answering some of those things. If I don't answer your question, I'll come back to it either in this session or on the session on Saturday. But the common questions that we have around now, how do I find this job is firstly, where do I start looking for jobs? How do I identify which jobs I would qualify for? So how can I match my qualifications to what's out there? How do I actually apply? The physical, practical things about how do I apply? What job portals should I use? How do I wait for recruiters to get back to me? How do I follow up? Okay, so we're going to go into the nitty-gritty of that today. And we will answer these bigger questions as we go along in this module, no problem. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is the shift from qualifications to skills. So this is a very good page to follow on LinkedIn. So if you don't have your LinkedIn profiles yet, you must start there. Number one, go back into the sessions again of last module. I have all the templates there for you. But this guy talks a lot about money management and skill sets, and it's a very good thing to follow. But in the recent one that he did, he's talking about how in his parents' generation, the focus was on qualifications. This is why I'm talking about how the story of work is changing. Currently, the big focus is on skills. And not just skills in terms of how we're transferring our skills from academia into industry, but skills that we need to keep building that cannot be disrupted by AI, machine learning, and outsourcing. So how do we build these key skills that will keep us marketable? So the person who spoke about, I've got my PhD and I'm trying to see how I can translate that. We have to also ask the question, again, what problem am I solving in the world? Because if we can think about what problem we meant to solve in the world, we can adapt our skills and also learn new skills. So the research that we've learned how to do, we have to keep upskilling, reskilling, and cross-skilling ourselves. So I'll explain to you what I mean about that when I talk about my own career journey and how I've shifted I'm basically now in my third career. So my first career was in journalism and publishing and communications, and then I went into fundraising. So I leveraged all the skill sets that I learned in my first career into my second career, fundraising, for about, it's now been 14 years in higher education fundraising. And then that has also helped me, the fundraising skills and my communication skills. So skill stacking, stack my skills. Again, I've been working for a long time. And now I'm in my third career, which is I'm now an entrepreneur. So I started out as an employee. I went into contract work. I was a freelancer, permanent employee, business owner, part-time worker. So I'm trying to show you that it's not a linear fixed thing. Okay, it's It's messy, it's jumbled, but your own specific race, your own specific pathway is going to be unique to you. Okay, so let's start with where do we start? Number one, have a CV. So let me know, raise your hands, let me know, give me a thumbs up if you have your CV that you could send me now and I could check it for you and you can say, I'm proud of my CV. Give me a thumbs up. Who has your CV? Let's see who's got them. Give me a thumbs up in the chat. Yes, I see some. Mrs. Kamala's got one. I see some thumbs up going. Great. Okay, I see some hands. We're going to come back and answer the questions as we go along. I just want to get into the first part of this. So if you have your CV, those people who did the thumbs up, right? Do you also have it on LinkedIn as well? Do you have it on LinkedIn? Is your CV translated onto LinkedIn? Let me see the thumbs up. Yes, I see some. I think these people maybe were in the previous session, so well done. Not too many hands, yes, but not on LinkedIn, I see. Okay, okay. So that's the first step to start. I think the way that we deal with the fear is by taking action, okay? So the fear can stay in our heads until we start to take very practical steps. Okay, I have my CV, I'm on LinkedIn. And when I talk about number 3, the third step is to do a skills assessment. So we look at our technical skills, okay, that we had. So look at the previous recording. I'll go into that. The technical skills around what your qualifications are, all the other technical aspects, and then also your we don't longer call them soft skills. We now call them power skills. So communication, leadership, because this is really what sets you apart in terms of how you can show your transferable skills. When a recruiter in the industry is going to be considering your application, they will look at, is this what kind of person am I looking at here? Is this someone who is open to growing in their leadership? Is this someone that can communicate well? Is this someone that's confident? Do they have work experience? Will they be able to come into our workplace and adapt and learn and add value? That's what they're asking themselves. So you have to make sure that you are conveying that picture. So I know in academia as well, we don't like to boast, right? Because it's kind of frowned upon because it's a group effort. So if anyone does that, they feel like they are being arrogant or proud. So I'm going to introduce you to a term called humble boasting. If you want to position yourself for a job, you have to humble boast. You have to say what you've achieved. You have to make a case for yourself. You are selling yourself. You are the package, the product, the service that you are now selling. So you have to get a bit more comfortable with selling yourself. And again, it's important to understand why. What is my reason for doing this? Because I want to be able to be financially secure. I want to do meaningful work. And I have to do this so that I can actually connect to the jobs that I want to get to. Okay. Then we have to align our qualification with the market needs. I'm going to show you how to do that. Okay. So what kind of companies in the industry am I interested in? And what kind of roles do they have in the organization? And how have I seen other people that has similar qualifications to me? What kind of work are they doing? Okay, we covered that in the previous session. That's very important to see, okay? Assessing what the market actually needs. Because the first rule of sales is that you have to make sure that you are selling something that people actually want. If you are not communicating the product or service clearly and not matching it to people who actually want to buy that, you will not succeed in your sales efforts. Same thing with positioning yourself. So also when we are looking at how do we start the job search, we start looking at the positions that we might be a good match for, okay? And we start noticing them and seeing what are the requirements. Because in any job job description or job ad, you'll see they'll list the technical skills and they'll also list the people skills as well. So we can start saying, okay, this is the type of jobs available that could be a good match for me. Okay, we're going to start to build that. And then also look at what other cross-industry possibilities could there be. So even if you may be looking in the health sciences sector, because that's where your qualification is, there might be some cross-pollination in another industry, maybe in tech or something, because of some of the aspects that you've covered in your research. So don't be afraid to maybe broaden your net, widen your net to see what other industries are also needing my skill set. And I'll give you a very practical case study about that as we go along. Something else to remember is that it might not be a permanent job in the beginning, okay? It might be a contract position. It might be freelance. It might be something that you maybe have not thought about. So be open to that being a bit more in flux, because again, permanent jobs are shifting. There might be a remote job. It might be something else, so don't be too fixed on the how, but be very fixed on the what you want. Okay, so please pop in any questions as you go along. I see there are some questions. So let's see who has their hand raised. Someone has their hand raised here, and that is, who is that? Oh, Rosa. You can go ahead, ask your question. Rosa?
Sorry, I think it's an old hand. I'll put it down. Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, so yeah, let's move on from there. So basically, our job search, this is kind of our overview of where we start, okay? And you will get these slides. I'll send them to Yangi after the session. That's where we start. So I asked you this question about CV and LinkedIn. That's where you start right now. If you don't have those, you need to get that in place. Okay, so now, second part is job matching. List your top 20 companies that you would like to work for. They can be in South Africa, in Africa, any part of the world, okay? Why would you want to work for this company? And what kind of roles do they have on offer? Okay, so then you start looking, you kind of building a scope for your job searching process. And then you're going to follow the company pages on LinkedIn, because you'll now have your LinkedIn profile. And then once you've done that, you're going to look for the people who work at those companies, and you are going to either follow their profiles, right? And make sure you are looking at people who have had recent posts or activities. I've found that people who have very static profiles on LinkedIn, they don't often use the platform a lot, so it's not really worth following them so much. Look for people who have active profiles. I'll show you what I mean right now. And then connect with the graduate recruiters or the learning and development staff in those organizations. So now we're getting to a bit of a breathing space. Okay, first thing, CV. Second thing, LinkedIn. Once we are on LinkedIn, we start looking at our companies, who are the people working there, and I'll show you why that's important. So I just thought about Deloitte, okay? And so I found this this one today of Theodosia Pillay, and she's a senior talent advisor at Deloitte, okay? So if you go onto LinkedIn, you'll be able to search people who work in those organizations. But look at her profile. In her featured post, she already has job opportunities and saying, look, we are looking for this specific role. Click here to view and apply. So I'm going to quickly go into LinkedIn and show you what I mean about somebody that has an active profile, number one. So you can see here that if you go scroll down, you basically will see her posts, okay? So let's look at her posts. Close my messages. So a post recently, she posted this 2 weeks ago. So this is something that's available for AT assurance and reporting graduate job opportunities in Cape Town and Joburg. Okay, so click on that. And it shows that she posted this. So you can even, like, for example, here's somebody from Boni, also at Deloitte, and you just follow that person. So you click follow. So then once you are following that person, whenever they post something like this, you'll get it in your feed. Okay, so let's look at what this actually is about. So here they've posted this opportunity, and so it'll tell you all about the company. Okay, so really nice word here. Every day, your work will make an impact that matters while you thrive in a dynamic culture of inclusion, collaboration, high performance. High performance means that there'll be a lot of stress at work, essentially. That's what it means, because there'll be a lot of expectations, right? But they look at key responsibilities, creating and owning a learning roadmap for Africa, So these are key responsibilities, but look at this as well. So, okay, there is Joburg and Cape Town, and it's a contract position. So like I told you, it might not be permanent. So don't overlook a contract position and think I must get a permanent position, because the contract position can lead to other opportunities in the organization. You want to get the foot in the door, you want to get inside the company, and from there you can get other opportunities. Okay. So it'll show you here, kind of what's in it for you. Some benefits here. They'll look at the job description, what will you do, and then the qualifications. So interesting here in this one, I looked at that today, is a postgrad or master's qualification advantageous. So Deloitte might be one of those companies that are looking for people who have postgrad qualifications, no previous work experience required. That's something you don't see every day. And I got all of this just by looking at, who's working at Deloitte. And so if you then click on I'm interested, some of them make it very easy to apply. This is why you need to have your CV ready, because you would either drop it in here as a PDF or you apply with LinkedIn. So it's very easy to do that. You fill in all your details, you add your experience, your education, your links as well. And then here, a message to your hiring manager would be a kind of summarized cover letter to say why you'd want to work at Deloitte. Okay, so we'll be covering that a lot in our other sections as well. But do you see what I mean? It's LinkedIn is where you need to be, because actually that's where we are learning and growing. So any questions on the LinkedIn? I have a quick question. Is there a disadvantage to limiting your degree of connectivity? Well, you can't really make your LinkedIn profile private. You want to be seen on LinkedIn, basically. That's why you're on LinkedIn. You want to be found. So I'm not sure if I understand your question. Maybe if you give me some more context around that, I'd love to be able to answer that question. So, for example, let me go back to her profile, right? When I was saying that you should connect or follow somebody. So let's go back to her profile. Let's close that. So when you are going to follow somebody, if you're not sure if you want to really connect to the person, you click on this button if they don't show it, and you just say follow. Okay, so now you're following that person, meaning that, and they'll see a notification to say that you are following their profile. Okay, if you want to connect though, you would click on connect, and don't just connect without a note if you don't know the person, because they might not be open to it. But if you want to connect, then you would say add a note, and then you put in your message. So the message then would say something like this. Can you go back into my, why is it not giving me that? There we go. I would say something like this. Hi, Therosha, I'll be completing my postgrad qualification, say what that is, and would like to connect so that I can be aware of upcoming positions that might be a good match. Something very brief, because you can see that she's in recruitment and she knows that she'll be getting messages from people who want to connect with her. And she's using LinkedIn probably as the primary tool for identifying talent in her team. So when you connect with somebody, you can also send them direct messages as well. And that's what's beneficial, because you kind of short-circuiting the whole job portal thing. You're getting a more direct contact with somebody who's actively recruiting in the organization that you want to work for. And that's why LinkedIn is a must, because if you maybe apply for that position and you haven't heard back, maybe it's been 2 weeks, 3 weeks afterwards, you can send her a message. Hi, Therosha, I've actually applied for this. What is the period where people are identified if they've made the shortlist, for example? Something basic. Don't stalk them. Don't nag them. Don't be someone that they feel like you are spamming them, but you're building a connection with people. That's going to give you a better hit rate on your applications than just the kind of blanket, I'm applying to a kind of generalized mailbox, and then I'm hoping for the best. Because there's a low response rate on those. You might get something from there, and you must do that as well. But try and build a human connection as much as possible. Also, if you're connected to people, then they can see your post, they can see your comments. If you then say, hey, I've now graduated, and then in that graduation picture of you smiling happily, you say, I'm actually looking for these kind of roles. Someone might notice that, oh, we're actually looking for people for that role at the moment. Okay, so I've done some LinkedIn stuff, but I think it sounds like we need to do a bit more LinkedIn strategy building that we'll do as we go along. Okay, so this is now you are building your CV, connecting with people. How do you apply for jobs? I showed you, for example, once you found the job opportunity, how do you find the link to then apply? So in the previous session as well, I spoke about how you should have not just one CV, but maybe if you're saying that I want to look at different options, maybe you want to look at, for example, academic roles as well as industry roles. Okay, so you kind of hedging your bets a bit. Then you would have one that's academic focused CV that you apply for roles there. And you have one that's industry focused for the roles that you want to apply for there, perhaps research positions in these organizations that borrow from your research experience, but will need a kind of nuanced CV. Okay, so that's what you want to start with there. And then also have your motivation letter templates ready. Any references that you're putting in, make sure you ask people if they can be a reference for your job applications. And then read through the instructions carefully because there's different applications. I know somebody that's been applying to go to New Zealand. They've done about 300 applications. And a lot of the portals that you kind of have to apply for, it's almost like you are rewriting your CV. You can't actually avoid that. It's just part of the process, right? That's why I'm saying even if you have to go through that process where you're basically feeding the machine, and the AI machine is going to look at keywords in your application and either dismiss it because it doesn't meet some criteria, or it's going to push it into the meet some criteria for consideration queue, basically. Okay, so understand how that works. And again, I want you to be aware of this. It won't just be one application. When I've been looking for jobs, it's 20, 30, 50 maybe. This friend of mine who's applying for New Zealand has said they've applied for almost 300 positions. And again, if you are looking for international positions, have a look at what the requirements are. I have seen some international positions where they are looking perhaps for researchers or people doing a fellowship or something like that. So if you are interested in the international exposure, if that's where you are in your current life phase, then look at those as well, because those opportunities are available too. Any questions before we go along?
The
What was
one
the name?
question,
Yes.
yes, that's the one comment that I do have. The name of the wage worker to follow on LinkedIn. It's on one of your profiles or slides that you did put up
Is that the lady from the
from
lady from
Deloitte.
Deloitte? Okay, but we are recording, so you'll be able to go back. It's Terosha. I can quickly go back. Let me quickly go back. Terosha Pillay. She doesn't know this, but she might get a lot of connection requests today. But this is the thing about your LinkedIn profile; it's public, so people can, use it. Okay, so where are we now? Okay, so we've gone to that part. Now, job portals. The one I would suggest the most would be LinkedIn, obviously. Career Junction's another one. So what you would do there is you would register. So you put in all of your information into the job portals, and then they basically have it on file. So every time you see something you want to apply for, you basically can then just apply with your CV that's saved in that portal. So the ones that are most popular, I would say, are these ones that came up. Career Junction, I've used a few times. Careers 24, PNet. Grab Jobs is something new, but have a look and see which jobs focus a bit more on your industry. Something else to also do is to look at any recruiters that you are finding that are recruiting for specific industries, to go onto their websites, because often on their recruiter websites, and I should put this onto the slide, on the recruiter websites as well, they list the jobs that are currently available. Some of them are on LinkedIn, some of them might not be. Okay, so like for example, in higher education, there's a specific recruiter that recruits for higher education roles, but their information isn't always on LinkedIn. So I would always go to their website and have a look there. If you're looking at the NGO space, actually, there's also one, I'll put in the chat. It's called sango.net is also a portal that you can use. It's in the chat. So SANGOs, and they often are looking for people who are researchers in this space. So if you're looking to go into the NGO space, that's a good portal to go onto there. Any questions on portals? Are we good? Okay. I want to go along so I can finish up all my content today. So another thing to do when you are now looking at this aspect of your job search. So you have to go through all these stages. So the CV, the LinkedIn, the honing your industry focus, connecting with people, starting to think about how you build those human connections. What you also don't want to neglect is actually leveraging your current social capital, your current social circles. They call it social capital. So letting people in your friends and family circle know that you're looking for a job. Okay, especially those people who have been nagging you and saying, why aren't you working? It's like, well, I'm looking for a job now, so now you can help me. Right? So you never know who could be connected that might say, oh, yes, I actually have a friend who works in Deloitte, for example, and they were looking for researchers in your industry. Let me put you in contact with them. That kind of connection is so valuable because if somebody is introduced to somebody else, it kind of helps to build that credibility. So something that happened to me recently was I did some work for the Polly Oak Foundation, and someone who worked with that lady would see my post because she would like and comment on my posts. So this lady works at Metropolitan Momentum, and she emailed me because of that connection. So again, LinkedIn is so powerful. But again, because she'd seen that this person had worked with me and they'd worked together, it's like, okay, if she trusts you, I trust you, you know? And then you could have the conversation. And also what you want to do is maybe ask for advice from the people in your environment. And like we have said, researchers are a specific breed of people. So people who have then moved into industry that contact them and say, tell me about your job process. What did you do to get that job? Because now I'm kind of at that stage where I'm ready for this now. And I'm feeling confused, I'm feeling anxious, and they're totally going to understand where you're at, and they will give you good advice. So think about that person right now. If you can remember who that person is that you actually want to speak to, write down their names and make sure that you contact them either today or tomorrow, because once we commit to something, it's much easier. And then something else I want to encourage you to do is to commit to spending, and if it's something that has to be urgent for you to look for something right now, you want to start putting into your diary to spend at least an hour to a day on LinkedIn. You want to identify those companies, you want to connect with people, follow them, see what is there. And because you are a researcher and you can write articles, you might have to nuance it a little bit because a LinkedIn article is not the same as a research article, obviously. But you want to showcase yourself. It's a free way to showcase your expertise. It's a free way for you to showcase your value, your insights, your knowledge. So think about how to do that. If you have questions on that, let me know, and we can maybe do a session on how to write a LinkedIn article that gets attention. That's something to make sure that you are visible, because if you're looking for industry, 6 people a minute are hired on LinkedIn. You're going to most likely find your job there or connect to somebody that can help you to get where you want to go. The other thing you want to do is to think about volunteering. So these are obviously for people who've just come out of their undergrad degree into their honors, perhaps, because there's more opportunities for those. To look at like perhaps vacation work programs that they can sign up for in companies that they are interested in. And if you are maybe beyond that phase, is to look for opportunities where you can gain experience and expand your professional circle. So the proximity principle is something I spoke about before. You want to get around the organizations and the people doing the work that you want to do. Because if you get around them and you work with them, they'll notice you and they'll bring you into their circle. Okay. So for example, for the vacation work, this is a lady from Bowman's, and she posts a lot about anything that's coming up in their organization. So for example, here's adverts on their Bowman's break, their summer vacation. And I know Bowmans, they are very, very intentional about creating an awesome work culture. So they get a lot of awards for that. So yeah, they have very proactive in terms of helping people to come in, understand the culture, be part of things. So this is why you need to spend time on LinkedIn, because there's all this opportunity there that you are not seeing because you're not on LinkedIn. A question that comes up now with recruiting as well is, even though you applied for like 30 to 50 jobs, of those jobs, maybe you'll get 2 or 3 people that come back and say, hey, we'd like to talk to you a bit more. So understand that that's normal. There's nothing wrong with you if people don't get back to you. It's just the way the system is set up. Remember, the recruiter is somebody that is processing probably hundreds or thousands of applications. Even on like bursary programs, for example, it's not just a few hundred students, it's actually thousands of students. So that's why you must make sure that you meet and exceed the norms that are expected for recruiting. Your CV has to be perfect. Well, perfect has to be good and noticeable. You have to showcase how you set yourself apart from the crowd. Okay. And so just if you do experience that, just remember, okay, this is normal. I'm doing what I need to do. I will keep trying to connect to the human beings. Okay. Following up with somebody if you have applied. So if you have the information, you can call or email the person and say, what is the 'cause often in the job ads they'll say, if you haven't heard back from us within 4 weeks of the application, you have not made the shortlist. Okay, so if they have that in the job ad, there's no point really contacting them, because then they've already given you the disclaimer in a sense. But if it hasn't had that, like for example in the Deloitte one, and there is a deadline that you've then met, so I would wait about 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks afterwards, and then contact the person. Or if you have the recruiter as a connection on LinkedIn, say, hi, I've applied for this role. I just wanted to find out from you, what is the period where people are notified whether or not they've made the shortlist? And if I haven't made the shortlist, are there any other similar positions that I can maybe apply for? Okay, so you want to be proactive, not stalky, but stalkery. But you want to be able to, just make sure that they notice you. Okay. And I wrote this article on LinkedIn about what to do when you can't find a job after graduation, because this is something that some people will face. Some people will find it easier to do it, depending on industry and their current opportunities. Somebody mentioned, is the job market too saturated? Am I going to get jobs? So it might take a bit longer. Okay, so these are my steps for you to be able to cope with this, right? If it's taking longer than you expect. The first thing is to be stubbornly optimistic. It can be very discouraging when you've applied, and also frustrating because you've worked hard to get your post-grad qualifications. And so it's important to understand that when you are applying, for example, in industry, that's not something that might differentiate you just because you've got the post-grad. There might be other people who also have similar qualifications. So you have to kind of understand that, okay, I'm going to keep on working at this because I will eventually get something. And something I suggest to people is, if it's a company you want to work for or a specific place you see yourself in, to print out that picture of where you want to be and put it onto your bathroom mirror. This is not, what do they call that? It's not wishful thinking. It's not The Secret. It's not, new age things. It's really getting your imagination focused on where you want to go. Because if your brain can fixate on the result that you want, your brain is going to help you to get to that result. Okay, so that's something you want to keep focused on. Manifesting, people are saying that, yeah. So work begets work. So get creative about seeking opportunities that will help you gain valuable work experience. Okay, so you might not think you've had work experience yet, but if you've done tutoring, if you've done any volunteer work, even on the weekends, animal shelters, all of that stuff, that counts as work experience. People want to know a bit more about you. Okay, if you haven't had a chance to do that yet, maybe think about how you can do that. How can you volunteer in your local community? Maybe you've always wanted to go and volunteer at a baby, at an orphanage, and like, just spend some time with the orphans and the babies on the weekend. Do that stuff, because you never know what that could open up. Maybe you'll meet somebody there that also is working in a similar industry, and they let you know about an opportunity, but just start something. What we want to do is kind of break out a little bit from the university space. You want to be able to say, okay, let me put myself out there a little bit. Okay. And if you're worried about what friends and families will say, why are you working at this place, or why are you volunteering them, just tell them this line. It's going to be a great chapter in my best-selling book one day about my origin story. We have to really let go of people's expectations of us. Nikki was saying it's a journey I chose for myself. Keep focused on the kind of work that you want to do and what's going to help you to get there. And like I was saying earlier, don't be afraid to think outside of your industry. You want to see how someone else mentioned, how do I do my transferable skills, right? So I met somebody last year at a business breakfast while I was working at UWC, and she had studied geology. And she graduated, all excited. Okay, fine, I'm finally going to work in my industry. And all her friends were getting jobs in the industry, and she kept applying, and nothing happened. And she kept applying. And eventually, this opportunity came up for her to work at Tiger Brands in the CSI department. And so she said to me, I felt like I was a failure because all my other friends were getting work in their specific industry that we studied for. And here I am getting a job in CSI, which actually at the end of the day she enjoyed. And she could see how she used her qualification to actually help her in her job. So again, don't be afraid to maybe apply for other things that might not seem like the thing that you would do. It might not be the first thing that comes to mind. So again, I'm asking you to broaden your horizon and think outside the box a little bit, because she's got a job and she's happy there. And maybe she will get something that's more aligned in her field, but she's getting very valuable work experience and a salary. And that's important. Finding a mentor who can help you, like I said, maybe somebody that was studying with you, is now in industry, maybe even somebody else outside of the university space that is your safe person. A safe person is somebody that sees you for who you really are, encourages you, supports you, celebrates your achievements. That's the kind of person you want to be around. That person who will help to challenge you, who can help you to get out of your own anxious thinking, and can maybe say, okay, is your CV done? Okay, do your CV. We can sometimes get so anxious that we don't take the action that's going to help us. Okay, your CV's done now. Let's look on LinkedIn. That person that's going to keep you, that cheerleader, that supporter that's going to keep you, helping you to go from the next stage. And then the last thing here is, this is your first job. Your first job is to get a job, because the time and energy and effort it's going to take for you to get a job, it is like a job. Okay, so it might be annoying to hear that, but it is the reality, because although you have worked very hard with your research and in the space that you're in, this is now something else that you need to begin to get your head around in terms of, okay, I'm going to approach getting a job just like I did with getting my master's done and getting my doctorate done and getting my all my different qualifications. I'm going to apply my same tenacity and resilience to getting a job, because you've done those things. So now you have to apply it here. And there's tons of people on LinkedIn and YouTube that helps you with that process. Okay, so even when you're planning now for the next month or two on how you would then work on getting a job, put it into your diary. Say, okay, on Mondays, I'm going to work on my CV. On Tuesdays, I'm going to spend these hours on LinkedIn. On Wednesday, I'm going to reach out to my network. Okay, so start building in a plan like you did before with your research on how you're going to move things forward. Questions and comments there before I go into my last part? No questions. Okay. So I'm going to tell you how I got my jobs because I want to show you that this is not linear. So my first job as a journalist, I was going to study at Wits. I was accepted. There was no money to study. So I was not going to sit at home and do nothing. I decided, okay, I'm going to go to the local newspaper. It was about 3 km from my house. I walked there and I asked the editor if I could volunteer to write articles. And she said, we're actually looking for a journalist. And so I was interviewed, and that's how I got my first job. And that first job was very stressful for me. There's many things happening in my life. So a year later, I left there, and then a friend of mine was working, doing temp admin work. And she gave my number to the recruiter, and I started getting some admin jobs. And eventually I got a job at an insurance company called PSG. I did data capturing there for a while in their Parktown branch. And because I was at the Parktown branch, I then went to their the Randburg office from there. Okay. But all this time I was studying communication part-time. So I wasn't even doing what I was studying. And so I was really wanting to actually apply my knowledge. And so I started applying for communications jobs. I found adverts, probably one of the job portals for communications officer. So at that stage, the office was still in Hillbrow in town in Johannesburg. And I went with a bus to the interview. I really liked the position, but I wasn't successful in that position. And only like 2 or 3 months later, I was called by the same recruiter who was recruiting for Sandbus to say there's another position that opened up, another communications officer position. And the lady that had interviewed me before had said, I liked Cheryl. I want to call her back for the interview. And so that's how I got my my permanent job as for the first time actually applying my communications qualification that I'd had. So I was there for about 2.5 years as the blood service. And then I had a horrible end to my relationship. And so I was looking for another job that paid me more money. And I applied via a job portal for communications executive. Okay, it was one of many that I applied for. I think I was applying maybe 500, maybe not 500, 50 to 100 jobs I had applied for. And so interviewed there, and I went to the interview in Bryanston. Seemed like a long shot, but eventually they did take me on. And because of the higher salary, I could finally get my own place and my car. So it was a very stabilizing job. That was for about 2.5, 3 years until they told me that I should look for another job because they were going to downsize. It was a family company. And so I looked for work. So then I decided I wanted to do more writing. So I applied for a assistant editor job, and this was in the transport industry. So I knew nothing about commercial transport, but I knew that I could write. So I applied via job ad. And because I was in a position where I had to find something, I didn't really make a good decision because they didn't really give me enough information about my full salary. I was a very consultant-based job. I only got paid for the hours I worked. And so there was a big jump here between the salary I was getting here to there. And so then I thought, well, I may as well freelance because I may as well write on my own. And the day that I resigned at the transport company, the colleague that I was working with, we worked in the same office. I'd gone down to the local spa, and he come to buy something, and he's like, "Oh, by the way, I heard you resign today. There's this freelance opportunity at this company called Kayello Communications. I can't take it on, but maybe you want to contact them." So it wasn't something that I looked for. Someone told me about that. So then I did contact them, and I did the freelancing thing for about a year or two. And then I had to get a full-time job. And I then applied again by many applications. I can't remember again how many applications I had, but eventually I applied for the publications coordinator job at the University of Johannesburg. And at the same time, there was also a communications job at a company around banking. I remember that the person interviewed me. I was like, I don't think I can work for this person. So I was very happy to get the UJ job offer, but I did tell them that there was another company that was wanting to employ me, and the guy was like, don't take any offers until you've spoken to me. So I was able to negotiate a higher salary at UJ, and that's where I started in 2009. into higher education for the first time. So I did that for about 2 years. And then I got tired of doing reports. I'm the kind of person who wants to do new things. And the one day, a friend of mine who was working at an NGO that I loved, she said, Cheryl, are you looking for a new job? I'm like, actually, today I really am. And she said, well, I'm going to leave this job in terms of a web editor. This is the salary. Are you interested? So I went in for the interview. I got that job. That job lasted not even 6 months, because I also overheard a conversation with the team there saying that, oh, Cheryl was the last one in, she'll be the last one out. And I thought, okay, I better look for something else as well. And in that week or two, I got a call from the fundraising manager at UJ, where I used to work. So basically, at the UJ corridor, there was communications and there was fundraising. And so I would often see her in the kitchen and we would talk and whatever. And I always thought I would love to do fundraising, because I was doing that kind of stuff on the side, volunteering and doing charity stuff. And so at the right time, she called me. I didn't look for that. She called me and asked me if I wanted to maybe be interviewed. And of course, I got the job because they knew me for like 2.5 years. I worked in that department, worked in that division. So I went back to UJ, did fundraising for about 2 years, and then the year that I got married, we moved to Centurion from Johannesburg. The commute was quite hectic. And there was a colleague working with me at UJ who said that, hey, there's a job opening at UP on that day. So I had not seen it. I didn't know about it. She sent me the link. I applied that day and I got that job. And funnily enough, while I worked at Stellenbosch, while I worked there at UP, my manager had said something about a job at Stellenbosch. And at the time, my husband and I were thinking about moving to the Western Cape. We had our personal reasons for that. And so she told me about this job. The closing date was the same day. I applied that day, and that was the job that I got. So that's how I got my jobs. It's funny because it's not linear, right? Even when after COVID and having a baby and juggling my business stuff, the colleague that worked with me at Stellenbosch, she had moved to UWC, and we obviously stayed in contact because we now became friends. And so I said to her, hey, let me help you out with some of the prospecting for a couple of hours. And so then I was working remotely part-time, also doing fundraising part-time in Johannesburg for a Western Cape company. So I wanted to show you that because work life is not linear. You kind of just have to let go a little bit. I know as researchers, we want definites, we want answers, we want to be able to see cause and effect and result, but life is not like that. I'm going to bring you back to what I spoke about in the first session under the Discover the Hero Within, and we have the difference between the fairy tale and the adventure. The fairy tale is stuck in, when this happens, then I'll be happy. Okay, so when someone can come and give me the answer to this question, then I'll figure it out. But the adventure says, I'm getting a call into the unknown. I don't know what's going to happen. It's all open-ended, but I'm going to follow this pathway. I'm going to follow my heart. And like what Nikki was saying, a journey I chose for myself. It's the hero's journey. Okay, the hero says, I don't know what's going to happen in a week, 2 weeks, 2 months from now, but I do know that this is the cause that I'm going to give my heart towards. And so I'm going to go in this direction and I'm going to find a guide. So I call myself the wholeness guide. You need a guide that helps you to see who you really are on the inside. You need a tribe, people that are like-minded, like passion, that can encourage you and help you fight. And then that transformation of you working and discovering and finding out what works, what doesn't. My journey is messy, but actually that's the backstory, because what those skill sets have given me is something that's moving me forward in my own purpose, right? So when I moved from communication, right, and publishing into fundraising, I was using my communication and publishing skills in terms of writing donor newsletters, doing donor articles. The fact that I had a keen interest in people, that's my kind of golden thread skill. I spoke about the golden thread in the previous session. What is the thing that keeps coming up for you? I'm genuinely interested in people and how they grow and why they work and why do some people hate their jobs and why do some people love their jobs, right? That's kind of been the underlying thing. But when I was starting out in my first stage of my career, I had no idea that one day I would do this kind of work that I'm doing now. There was a seed there, maybe, but I was still going through a lot of growth, emotional maturity. I had to heal from lots of traumas. So what I'm trying to say is that the work story is part of your life story. And as you grow and mature, and as you get more confident in connecting your head and your heart, it's really what the wholeness approach is all about. What is your head saying? What is your heart saying? That's why I asked Nikki, if I could give you all the money in the world, what would you do? Try and follow that as much as possible. Yes, sometimes you might take a job because you want to take care of your kids, you want to take care of yourself, you have to eat. That's a noble thing. There's nothing wrong with that. But never ever lose sight of the thing that I want to do, because the more you go in that direction, the more you'll find help and support in that direction. It might not be the timing that you want, the way that you want, but trust the process. That's what I wanted to say there. Questions and comments before we go. I'm going to go look at some of the comments here. Okay, so let's look at Mr. Ardenoff. No, that's a female. She's saying, my supervisor told me to look for a job that will accommodate me doing research while working, and if I wanted to pursue a PhD, and to try and find a way that my research will benefit my future employer. For example, I'm doing my MSc at ISCM and Stellenbosch, and the doctors here are all pursuing postgrads while working. That's a really good one because that is possible. Someone's raised their hand. Who is it? Hi. Jose. You have your hand up? You want to comment? Question? Jose? We can't hear you.
Hi.
Hi, there we go.
Oh, hello. Thank you for this because I'm actually in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, actually. So I'm so sorry to attend late. So late, you have connecting problems. That's why I attended late. So I would like you to share the recording.
Oh,
The record,
yes.
so that I can follow again.
Okay, no
Thank
problem.
you very much.
You're welcome, Jose. We will be sharing the recording.
I don't know if you got this.
Okay, we are struggling to hear you, Jose. If you can maybe pop your question into the chat. The slides.
Can we hear me?
Yeah, you're breaking up a little bit.
Yes, we can hear you, Jose.
You're breaking up a little bit, but I think you're asking for the slides. We will share them with you. So in the MS Teams chat that you're part of, you'll find the recording as well as the link to the slides. Is that correct, Yongi? Hey?
Perfect, 100%, Cheryl. Yes.
Yes. Okay. You will definitely get them in the email as well that Yongi will send. Okay. Thank you for your comment, Jose. I'm glad it was helpful so far. Any other questions around how do you look for the job? How do you do the skill sets, the transferable skill sets? We did cover that a little bit in the previous section, but I think, Yongi, what I'm picking up here is that a lot of the people were not attending the previous session. So maybe we can just find those again, and I can just see if there's anything that I can highlight in terms of identifying for each slide that we've worked on what that covers, almost like an index, and make it easier for people to go back to that. Okay, I'm looking at Sibia's comments. I'm torn because I like the illusion of flexibility we have in academia, working 24/7, just whenever you want and can. The feedback I've heard about my industry and have seen is not appealing. I'm most interested in fostering and developing better value-based relations between higher education institutions, government, and industry. If money was not a problem, I'd be doing all of that and drive the direction of scientific research and discoveries towards national and continental needs. It sounds like you have discovered your purpose, your kind of goal of what you want to do in your life, right? would like to be paid to do the trial and error kind of work that aims to improve our current system and adopt different options. Okay, so here I think you are identifying why it's hard for us as researchers, academics, to then translate into the world of work, into the industry, okay? And so something that I want to maybe share with you, I'm busy coaching somebody at Wits, and she's a amazing scientist, very passionate. And so we working on discovering what is her purpose statement. So she's loving her work that she does. She's one day wanting to build this like kind of think tank research. I think similar to what you're saying. Okay. So the question I'm going to say to you is, how do you fund that? Go back to the recording on the money management thing, because also there look at how can you match your money management to your purpose. And also we have given some books as well that I've written for this group. Well, this group has inspired it. It's called Managing Money in the Real World. And I look at what is your number. So Sabia, do you want to unmute quickly? Are you still on the call? If you are, please
Yes,
unmute.
and I'm unmuted.
Okay, what is your first name?
Zimbili.
Zambili. Okay. I want you to not tell us this, okay, but I want you to write down, and maybe everyone else can write down, what is your desired amount that you'd like to earn every month? So think about, you know, basic expenses, house, car, food, groceries, all of that. And then, you know, money for travel. So like your ideal monthly income. So write that down. Don't tell us what it is. You have written it down?
Yes.
Okay. Now, everyone else on the call, write that down as well. What would that number be? That you know would be a comfortable number that you can say, okay, I can do the work that I want to do because I have this number in my bank account, and every month I have this, right? You have that number.
Yes.
Now I want you to multiply that by 300.
1.
Okay, you got the number?
Yes.
Okay. So that's the number that you need, okay, to live out your dream. Because this dream that you want to create, and I can maybe discern in this group, I have a group of dreamers, a group of unordinary thinkers to create solutions in the world. So that number that you've got is that's the price of your dream. The price of your dream is that number. So you have to think about, how can I build up this number through various income streams? So beginning to make sure that you are investing your money is one of the ways to do that. And there's other aspects of that. So this dream. Yes, you have a question?
No, sorry, I just lost you for a second
Okay.
there, so I didn't hear part of what you said.
Okay, let me repeat that. Okay, so you take your monthly amount that you want to have. Okay, and people work on this as like when they retire at 65, but there's a shift around why does retirement have to be at 65? You want to be able to shift the retirement into doing purposeful work. When can I start to do my purposeful work rather? And so that number that you have multiplied by 300, if you have that invested, that amount of money invested, let's say it's 15 million rand, okay? That's my number. 15 million rand needs to be invested so that I can grow 4% annually of that amount, which means that will be 600,000 a year, and that will give me 50,000 rand a month that I need for my expenses. Okay, so go back to that session, get a copy of the book, because that's going to help you to figure out that's what I need. Now, the key there is learning how to use compound interest to your benefit, making sure you're not getting into debt, making sure you're making wise financial decisions. It's all interconnected, because what I'm sensing is a reluctance to sell out to a job. And I can really, really identify with that, because I'm an entrepreneur. I've always been an entrepreneur. Every single job that I've had, I've been an entrepreneur. This is why I was frustrated when I couldn't see what my work was kind of doing. If there was a lot of barriers, and I've worked in higher education for many, many years, so I understand that part too. It was frustrating for me, but I was still doing work that I loved in terms of working with students, connecting with donors. So as you are evolving, I want to say this again, everyone's journey is their own. And as you are evolving, you're going to discover things about yourself, but having more clarity. So now you know what that number is. How do you feel about that, Simbaya? So, sorry, your first name again was?
Zimbili.
Zimbili, sorry. How do you feel about that number?
I'm not sure because you mentioned the exact number that you said was your goal. So now I don't know if I'm judging myself poorly now. It's in my head. Now I feel good about it. More from a place of I can see how it can be possible. And but at the same time, I think there's a huge shift from my side in terms of behavior and thinking around who gets to get my money.
I like that. Who gets to get my money? That's good. Yes, and it helps us make decisions around what kind of work will we do. So if it's a job that's going to help us get that, if we know, okay, if I take this job and it's giving me X amount per month, it means that I can invest 50%, 20% of it to help towards my goal and still research. That's great, right? What else could I maybe do? Is there maybe some business things I have to do? Maybe I want to get into doing some talks. Maybe I want to do a podcast. Maybe I want to do some ebooks as well that I sell. So it's about not just thinking about getting a job, but thinking about how can I sell my skills. So in the previous session as well, we did the evolution of the portfolio career, where it focuses on skill sets. So don't just think about how you can sell your skills to one employer. Think about how you can sell your skills to multiple clients. That's a big shift. And that's something as somebody who was an employee for many years, I couldn't perceive that because I was in debt. Because I was in debt and under financial stress, I couldn't think about possibilities. And so if you are feeling like that, if you're feeling like pursuing academia is going to create more financial stress for me, how can I package my skill sets so that I can maybe sell my skill sets in other ways? That's going to be a wise thing to do, because from working as a fundraiser to then realizing, actually, I want to do coaching, I want to do training, and learning those skill sets along the way, I've now been able to expand my income streams to training, coaching, speaking, book sales. It takes a long time, but to build those income streams, takes effort. But once you start to get there, you start to see, hey, but I got some value to add to the world of work.
I like that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for putting in grad link, for sharing that on the chat. I appreciate that. I did not know about that one. I'll add it to my notes. But for the next session now, it's going to be on Saturday morning. So wake up early. We're going to look at what do you do once you have an interview? Okay, how do you prepare for online, in person? How am I going to check that I actually want this job? And what do you do after an interview, as a courtesy email? When do you follow up? And what do I do if it was a good interview, like a good date, but then they don't get back to me? What do we do? Okay, so that's what we're going to be looking at in the next section. And like we shared, this recording will be on the MS Teams group. And then I'll also share the slides as well on there. So you'll also have the slides for today. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you so much for saying that, Ms. Hall. I look forward to engaging with you in other sessions as well, too. And I'm glad you are seeing that it's not just you. We are all feeling these pressures and these things of how do I find meaning? How do I do something that doesn't violate my values? So I'm going to encourage you to go back to the values exercise as well, because that's going to help you to feel a lot more calm and peaceful in making that. So I think also what I'll do in the next session on Saturday is to revisit the work values. What do we actually want? Because if we know what we want, then when we are interviewing, we are a lot more congruent in actually how we then come across. Thank you so much, Yongi, again, for hosting us today.